sorry to hear about Jaylen Jones, but where do you go from there? How do you feel about your depth? Who steps in for him? What's your rotation look like? All those questions.
Well, I want to be clear, man. That's a tremendous loss for us in more ways than one. I mean, he was a tremendous asset, and just in terms of his leadership. I mean, really, really strong football intelligence. He's very, very confident, and as a coordinator, he gives you confidence to go in man-to-man coverage because he would constantly say, "Hey, coach, I'm ready, man. Let's go lock him down." And then his skill set. I mean, I tell him all the time, I say, "Man, you're a pro. You possess a skill set that you can certainly play at a high level." So we'll miss him not only on the field, but in the locker room. And the last thing, he provided a lot of versatility. As you know, he could go inside and play safety. Did a great job at corner, and then also in the kicking game. So how do you replace him? Well, Ken Webster came in at the end of the game off of an injury, and he played well. Played exceptionally well. We got Javion Hamilton at the corner, and now the freshman is really going to step up. Keydron is going to have to really step up. And Miles, who's probably our most flexible guy right now, Miles Horsford, those guys have to step up on the edge. And we got to just pick up where he left off at, and it's painful. But I know he expects us to go on. Jaylen Julius has been man, he played well. What an ultimate surprise. You talking about watching a kid mature. I mean, it's amazing how much more he's matured from last year. And just his level of focus and his commitment. And, of course, you can see his play speed. And it's just a blessing to see young men do that. And we're proud of him for doing that. And we're fortunate to have him on this football team.
Coach, I think at halftime we counted you'd already substituted 20 or 22 guys on defense. So talk about that, but also talk about Montreal Custis and what kind of game he had.
Well, if you look at the current trend right now in college football, you're going to play 100 or maybe north of 100 snaps. And the one thing that we're constantly talking about on defense is let's make sure that we go into the fourth quarter fresh. And let's make sure we play the guys that's on the roster and not be afraid to put a young guy in because of the mistake that he may make. Because when you get to the red zone, you get the 2 minute, you get the fourth quarter, that's the point of the game you really want your first line guys in, and you want them fresh. And so with the trend of college football now, the tempo offenses going into a game and coming out playing north of 100 snaps, I think it's important for us to play multiple guys. I think it's important that you go into a game and you have 2 starting units. And so you'll see a lot of that, and I encourage the coaches to, don't be afraid to play those guys. Let's play them. We'll coach them up during the week. We'll train them during the week. But on game day, let them play. And Montreal Custis, I mean, I look at him, man, in the same light as Jaylen Julius. Matured a lot. It's a difference. It's a big difference that a year makes in a young man. And I also think when a young man knows that you value him, and you put a lot on him and you build confidence, I think they'll go out and play a lot better. And, man, it was great to see him play well because the biggest question coming out of spring is who's going to be the star. So he did a phenomenal job, particularly in the fourth quarter. I mean, that goal line stop on fourth down, I mean, a year ago, would he have made that play? We don't know. But it was good to see him play that well. And one of the reasons why he was able to play well in the fourth quarter is Vernon Dasher. Dasher came in during the game and gave us a lot of quality snaps. Again, he has the skill set and the talent and the size to be a starter, and we're fortunate to have 2 guys in that position that can play well, play at a high level.
Wesley, you guys didn't get hit with any targeting stuff, but around the country there were a ton of targeting calls. You obviously lost a DB. There's, I'm sure we talked about depth already. Is that even a bigger point of emphasis this week and going forward after you kind of see just how much officials are emphasizing that around the country?
Well, we emphasize it, in training camp, and Coach Luke did a tremendous job of videoing the situations that we'll face, the rule changes, the emphasis our officials going to be searching for this year. So we went to training camp, we paid attention to it, and had a lot of time on task then. But when it happened in the game, when we saw Texas Tech lose a player because of it, immediately our sideline began to talk about it, And we talk about the target and the strike zone. Make sure we not only hitting the receivers in the right strike zone, but also the quarterbacks, because it's part of the environment. It's part of the culture now. They're searching for it, and if it's close, not only are you going to penalize, but you can lose a kid in the ball game. So we're definitely going to coach it up every day. It's going to be on the agenda to talk about daily, and we're going to make sure that these guys understand that it's a certain strike zone and target area that you have to make your tackles in now. And sometimes it gets difficult because the offensive guy, he'll bend down, but we can't allow them to make that as an excuse. We have to do it the right way. So you're certainly right. We're definitely paying more emphasis to it.
Coach, Cliff Kingsbury said after the game that you changed coverages and fronts a lot and kept them a little bit off balance, and that he thought that was a key in the game. Is that a benefit of being second year in the program, and is that something you couldn't do last year as much when you were calling the game?
Well, it's definitely a benefit, Chuck, in on year number 2, because now you can put more on your players' plate, and now they're able to now. Tech they does a wonderful job of getting lined up with speed and looking at and diagnosing what you're in the defense, and then going to a play they can get positive yardage on. And if the defense doesn't do the same thing, we call it look. Once they look, we have to look. And if you don't do that, then they're probably going to get a positive play on you. But our guys did a tremendous job of resetting their cleats, communicating and adjusting, and it's definitely a benefit year 2. We did it some last year, but you'll have half of the defense running one coverage, other half running another one. So it was real good to see the guys get on the same page, and the communication was really key. And we came in on Sunday and kind of joked to him about the guys using sign language, and I always tell one guy, Chuck, when you get a signal, co-sign off on it, and it was nice to see. And when you see those things, you have to come into your meeting room and you have to make it a big deal, because if not, if you don't emphasize it, you won't get it on the grass.
What did you think of Tariq Tisdale's game?
I tell you, it was surprising to see him play as well as he did. And one thing we talked about with Tisdale is increasing his snaps. And he's a big kid that can run very well. Doesn't say 2 words. I mean, he's strong in the classroom in terms of knowing his assignment. It doesn't offer a lot of mental mistakes, and kid he plays hard. And he gave us a tremendous shot in the arm and allowed us to play at a high level at certain times.
Not trying to hog this thing, but got to ask you about the linebackers. Just evaluate both positions, if you would, and where you go without Cavante if he's not eligible.
Well, right now we're game planning. Of course, and Monday's a big game plan day for us, and we'll get together this afternoon and tomorrow morning, and we'll talk personnel. But if we're not able to have Ruggs in the lineup, and we'll look at moving Momo over to Moneybacker, number 46. Who's real strong in terms of knowing the defense, very knowledgeable, and it was good to see him play well. And then we'll go probably at the Mike position. We'll probably go with Bean Dukes, move him up to Mike position, and we'll start at that point.
Questions? What has Bean Dukes done to make you feel confident in sliding him into that role?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
What has Bean Dukes done to make you confident to go with him this week?
Well, I'll tell you the biggest thing that the young man has done is that, when he was moved down the depth chart, his attitude didn't change one bit. I mean, he had a phenomenal attitude. I call it a championship attitude. I mean, he stayed on task. He came into the meeting room and he took notes as if he was, still with the ones. And you can see the coaching from the sideline, the leadership. And, a lot of times when guys' roles being reduced, they tend to pout, and you can see it visibly. But, that young man continued to work, and I believe it was Tuesday when we came in and Coach Summerall on the side, let's get him some more snaps, and, because at some point he's going to have to help us. But he has done a tremendous job himself of staying locked in and staying positive, and he played great in the game on Saturday, which also give us a lot of encouragement to plug him in and let's go.
Coach, what do the Salukis run, and what do you expect from them?
Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. They're going to run the ball. If that don't work, they're going to run it again. If that don't work, they're going to run it again. They did a tremendous job against Murray State running the ball. And I was in there studying last night and this morning, And the first thing I look at is, I take the stat sheet, and I want to see the run-pass comparison. They do a tremendous job of running the ball. They have 2 running backs. That's a nice 1-2 punch. You got one kid that's a scat back, and he can make you miss. He can get skinny, get in gaps, and crease you. Another running back that's a move the chains type kid. This big kid can earn the hard yards. And so they're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball, and they'll use a quick game because they like to get in a lot of bunch formations, reduce the formation down, get the ball out quick, which is a portion of their running game. And so we expect them to come in and run the power, run a lot of zone plays, and just keep the ball on the ground and challenge our defense. And we have to do a great job on defense of continuing to stop the run. And it's going to be a good test for us on Saturday to see if we're going to be disciplined, if we're going to be sound, if we're going to be physical versus the run game.
Coach, when you go with Ben Dukes there in the middle, obviously you're losing a little bit of speed from having Momo there. Do you change your personnel at all on the defensive end or anywhere around him to compensate for that speed?
Well, no. I mean, one thing about Ben Dukes is, he understands the defense, and a lot of times that, when a young man is not playing up to speed, it's not all physical. It's all he's processing. So now that he understands, the defense, he'll play faster, and you put more confidence in him, and he'll play faster. But one thing we did talk about in line with what you're saying is that on 3rd down, let's get some more faster guys on the field, and that ties into you don't look at a guy's classification. Let's get more speed on the field, and let's get to the quarterback because one thing we're not satisfied with coming out of the last ball game, as many times they threw the ball, we didn't walk away with sacks and interceptions. So we certainly got to improve on that because we're getting ready to go on the run now. If you don't get takeaways and you don't pressure the quarterback and wreck the decision maker, it'll be hard for you to come out on top. So we definitely going to pay attention to that.
Coach, after a big win now, how's it feel just to finally get back here at home and play in front of the Ole Miss fans?
Well, I'll tell you, it's really, really good to get a win, and especially on the road. I think it's, go to training camp. Training camp, one of the best I've been around. I think Coach Luke and the entire support staff at Ole Miss did a wonderful job in training camp, and it was going so smoothly you rarely get to a ball game. And to go win a game on the road, man, was outstanding. It was outstanding for our fans, outstanding for the players, and now to have an opportunity to come back home, you get an opportunity to sleep in your own bed and play in front of your own crowd. I mean, it's going to be great. It'll be great to have fan support behind us, and I'm sure the players are really excited about being home this week.